But yeah, everybody, if you're a minority, you've experienced some form of racism, and there's just no need in just blowing up over it, or because they're ignorant. You know, I just don't deal with ignorant people. I don't give them the power to even make me mad or upset or anything like that. That's just who they are. You know, but I see a lot of it's coming back now. A lot of racism that we had in the past is just rearing its ugly head now. It's really sad. It's really sad.
Grandmas hold a special place in our culture. We cherish their endless love. We admire their skills in the kitchen. We rely on them as babysitters. We hold them up as examples of honesty and moral purity. But did my grandmother and the women like her make such sacrifices out of choice or due to a lack of choice? To meet the expectations set for them by society to be a strong, eat last type of matriarch? Were they the result of wonderful character traits or the oppressive demands of American society, or both? For our grandmothers, what are the motivations and forces behind their seemingly superhuman abilities? What's up, y'all? This is Jordan Theory with Dream Chase Life. This is episode 4 of Grandma's Roses, featuring Miss Rogetta. I met Miss Rogetta in Miami. She asked me to come out to her house so I could interview her. So I drove out to the far, far west suburbs of Miami. I thought Kendall was far, but this was even further than that. Finally got out there. It was a nice neighborhood. Went inside and met her mother, her son, and we just started hanging out. And I got to, have a really great conversation with her, and asked her about, her life and her work and her grandchildren. So these are a few clips that I thought were really interesting. And so this first set of clips is her talking about growing up in an all white area in Missouri, which I could definitely relate to. So enjoy.
I'm originally from Auxvasse, Missouri. It's a little French colony, Auxvasse. It's in between St. Louis and Kansas City. It is close to University of Missouri. So I grew up my grandparents had an 80-acre farm, so a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting, a lot of driving tractors. My grandfather was half Irish and half black and Indian. So we were probably only 5 families of African Americans that lived in that small town. Like my mom was going to school to get her master's, so I pretty much lived, up underneath my grandparents. I lived with them, while she was going to classes and staying with them. Early age, he had a farm. He had pigs and cows and a couple horses, and it was a big farm. We'd go fishing, learn how to shoot a gun. Everybody in Missouri has a gun rack in the back of their car. Learn how to shoot a gun. They had a farm. They had like a garden, so we grew our own vegetables. Then Grandma would, can those vegetables, and so she put them in the cellar, and then they had a meat house, so he would, smoke. That's where all the meat would come from the hams and the smoked pigs or whatever. And I remember we had a little pet chicken, and I named her Lonesome because she was the runt. But she grew up, and then one day my grandmother plucked and cooked the chicken. And I didn't eat chicken for a long time after that. My maternal grandfather and my paternal grandmother, that's when I said they died a day apart of each other. It was like, it just took, because they were my grandparents, So I lost them both a day apart of each other, But it was I really loved both of my grandparents a lot. Yeah. I used to love going to their houses.
Another thing me and Miss Rogetta really vibed on was we both spent some of our formative years in Washington, D.C. And so she talks a little bit about, going to college and the impact that Washington, D.C. had on her, which is actually just very, very similar to the impact that it had on me in my life.
Well, my mom was a school teacher when I first started, and then she was getting her master's in gifted education. So one thing has always stuck to me. She goes, "You always want to be well read and well traveled." So I always knew that I wanted to travel around. Being from a small town in Missouri, and then when I went to another little funny thing, when I went to college. One of my best friends, and she's not with us any longer, when my mom put me in the Washington semester program, she also put me into one at Mizzou. And I was there with inner city kids. And it was minority. So it was a big difference for me, and I had to learn how to, I used to talk, they say it's talk different. So me and her would practice on her bed, picking up the slangs and stuff like that. It's so funny because she went to this school called Center in Kansas City. So, but it was, diversity is everything. If you just stay with just the same people that you're used to being with in the same little town, you just don't really realize how the world works. So when I went to school at Mizzou, that was pretty much an, eye-opening experience for me. College, got a little bigger, and then I went to DC. That totally changed my whole, way of thinking, because I just hadn't been exposed to, any of the things that, big city, predominantly African Americans, and doing so good, and just, I just had never been exposed to anything like that. So that definitely opened my eye.
Now, these last set of clips I want to share with you are from parts of our conversation where she was talking about being a woman, what it's like for her to be a woman, a black woman at that, how that's sort of affected her experiences at work, how it's affected her experiences as a mother and as a grandmother. I appreciated a lot of what she had to say here, and also continue to find it interesting how the women of this generation, say sort of my grandparents or my parents' generation, really, had to sort of not dwell on a lot of these aspects of their marginalized identities because, they didn't want it to impact their ability to get through, right, or to thrive. And so I thought that was really interesting, and I found it as a common theme in a lot of my interviews. But anyway, here's Miss Rogetta sort of talking about how those things have played out in her life.
Probably the biggest sexism problem I had, you have to remember, I was 100 pounds lighter, younger, I worked the second time I moved back to Miami, I got a job as a temp at the Miami Dolphins office, and Jan Iliff was the vice president. I worked with Joe Robbie, and I was the secretary for Mike Robbie and Jan Iliff, okay, and it was before the Dolphins had built the stadium. They were building the stadium actually, and so we worked at the County Line Bank building, and I remember one of the VPs. I'm not going to say the name. I'd be at the copy machine making copies, and he'd always come behind me and just rub against me. Or call me in his office and say, "Look at that lady over there. She's new," but he'd have those, what are those called? Those binoculars, yeah. Look over, and then he'd get back. He just made me super, super uncomfortable. Did it to me all the time. And I go, I'm the only black person here. Who are they gonna believe? Me, black girl, and he's vice president, So I talked to my husband, he was like, "Look, I go, it didn't really pay. The Dolphins weren't, too great back then. I mean, you got free tickets. It's not like I'm giving up my career, you know what I'm saying?" So my husband at that time just said, "Listen, let's just quit the job." Because I don't want to, I just didn't feel like they'd even believe me, you know what I'm saying? And then, so I just, turned in my resignation, and that was just so uncomfortable though. And I just said, oh, I used to hate going to work there. I mean, when he was there, because he would always either say something, do something, touch me, and just, I just didn't know what to do. And then back then they didn't have the laws that they had now about sexism and things like that. And you always get those. I remember I had my good job at GMAC, and a lot of times what you don't realize is there's in the workplace, there's people who don't want you to succeed. So like there was a group of these older white women who just did not want me to, they was jealous of the money I made, or, just kind of ganged up against me. That was another good reason. I said, well, it's so you face a lot of that on the job. And that probably was a good thing when I left left working at the Miami Dolphins, because I got into the real estate business, so I got a job really close to my house and got into the real estate business. So that was my career until they had the bubble, But yeah, so you face sexism, ageism, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes if you're young, older people don't like you, and vice versa. So yeah, as a woman, you get it. Whether it's a boy pulling your hair while you're in grade school, and you telling them no means no, and you've got to have respect for yourself. Otherwise, people are just going to run all over you in life, okay? If you don't, you got to be aware of who you are, aware of your surroundings. That's going to follow them through grade school, through middle school, because there's always going to be haters out there. There's always going to be people who, boys that make you cry, girls who are mean. There's always going to be boys that make you cry and mean girls, always in life. Somebody once told me. So you've got to learn how to make sure that you are more of a leader and not a follower. That's one thing that, you got to instill in them. You don't just go along with the crowd, because so many people have run their life just by going along with what somebody else did, and that one little dumb thing can just change the course of your whole life. So, that's one of the things I want to instill in them, to be true to yourself. If you know something's not right, then, be the one who, just step back and don't get yourself in a situation, Because you've seen them, especially, you learn how to say no. A lot of people can't say no. Learn how to say no, So that's my advice to them. If you respect yourself, you're going to know that something's not right here. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And you'll be so happy. There's so many times when I followed that hunch, gut feeling, and backed out of a situation, so thankful I did. Sure, the society has changed as far as women, from even when I've grown up. I mean, there's more laws on the book. I mean, if you were faced with sexual harassment in the early '80s, in the '80s, there's more laws on the book now that's going to protect you. You don't have to feel like, well, I can't say anything to anybody. Who's going to believe me? I mean, if you're getting sexually harassed at work, that shouldn't go on. So that's changed. The one thing that hasn't changed as a shame is the pay. As far as women, you and I can be doing the same job. You're going to get paid more. We can have the same degree. We can have the same background, and the man always gets paid more. So that needs to change more. It's changed a little bit, but it needs to change more. And I think this is the year of the woman. Women are stronger last year and this year than we've ever been before. I mean, I look at the House of Representatives and how many women, and diverse, women that were elected, that, and I feel like I was part of it. We all, I'm a big thing on Twitter, follow the elections, help, do the, help with the volunteering, the phone banks and things like that. So as women, we elected so many women this year, because I have a feeling, I hate to say that, I'm just tired of old white men, and that's nothing against anybody old or anybody white. I just think that women have more compassion, as far as, I think women get things done, and I just think at this point, there's too much power with these lobbyists and people paid off. It's just a big scam. So I think with women, I think women are a little bit more open-minded. You know, we need to get these old dinosaurs out. They're more open-minded as what's going on with the family. They know how it is to juggle a family and a career, you know, and get things done, because you got to be able to multitask. And I think that that's one thing that women are really good at. My parents and grandmother and my mom always taught me about being a woman is, you know, to respect yourself, okay? You know, because if you're not going to respect yourself, nobody else will. You know, act like a lady, and you know, just be very aware of your surroundings and what's going on. And they taught me to be loving and giving. I mean, my mom is really big in giving back to the community. I mean, that's just her. She volunteers. You know, she's part of different organizations. And so that's how I am with the veterans in the American Legion. That's kind of like my cause. And I just believe you got to just always give back, you know, push other women along. So, and with my mom raising me as a single parent, you know, she was, you know, she's like my shero. I mean, you know, she, you know, went to school, went back and got her master's, graduated, and she always just taught me to, you know, to be the best me, you know. In the black community, the grandmother is always there. And whether you call her Nana, whether you call her Meemaw, you know, grandma, whatever you want to call it, she's always one of the forces. It seems like grandmas can cook better than anybody else, okay? They can give the best hugs. And whether you're a girl or a boy, you know, if you were blessed enough to have a grandmother alive, you probably thought you were the apple of her eye. You know what I'm saying? Because you knew she loved you. You knew that you could get what you wanted, you know, off of that, and it just gave you the most satisfaction, you know. So, and usually, you know, unfortunately, as you get older, you know, like I don't have a grandmother alive. You know, your grandmother, grandfather in the first portion of your life when you're forming who you are, you know, they have a big part about that. And a lot of times you learn death through your grandparents or your first, you know, family that, you know, that dies, and that's how you learn the harsh reality of death, you know. You know, because there's somebody that you know, you love as much as your mom and dad, and it kills you. And because I told you, when they died a day apart of each other, I thought, how cruel is life, you know? So when you go through a death of a grandparent, it really, you've heard them say life isn't fair. Well, you see that it's not, you know what I mean? And growing up with, they just mean love, you know. This all about love that they have for you, because you just know your grandmother loves you to death. And you couldn't get nothing by on them. Couldn't get anything by on them. They knew if you was telling a lie, they knew you was lying. You know, they knew exactly. I remember my grandmother used to make me go get the switches off the tree to spank me with. And don't come back with no little bitty switch. You know, it had to be one of them green ones with the whippoorwill. Oh my God. Yeah, but I tried not to get in any trouble with my grandparents, but a lot of times I got that whip, got that spanking. So, but yeah, having, you know, grandparents is just the best thing. That if you're blessed enough to have a grandmother, you know, like we had, then it made you a better person, I'm sure, you know.
Thank you for tuning in to Dream Chase Life. If you're digging the content, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave your feedback, ideas, and love in the comment section. And we're going to try to keep bringing you some great content right from the community. Peace.